It was Shala Nassar's first time participating in a first contact meeting, and she couldn't have been more excited. They were on a reptilian ship designed for this purpose, where the new species received the opportunity to speak one-on-one with 6 species of their choice, for up to an hour each. A fellow diplomat, Tobias Hyvanen, was her partner in this, although she'd been assigned to take the lead. That meant it was her responsibility to go over the checklist. Greeting memorized and approved? Check. Atmospheric compatibility approved? Check. Cultural taboo review? Check. Allergy list scanned? Check. The first time she'd been shown the extensive checklist, she was a bit unimpressed. It started by confirming things that were quite basic. For example, first on the list was to make sure the Earth diplomats were meeting with the correct planned species. But she had to consider how severe the consequences could be for any mistakes, and the fact that mistakes has happened before. Immediately preceding the implementation of the checklist, a human diplomat had indulged in a poppy seed bagel for breakfast. This was on a list of banned foods to eat a week prior to the meeting, which she had either not read or forgotten the details of. He proceeded to exhale opiate fumes during the meeting, and one of the alien diplomats who had come in fairly dry became covered in mucus within 10 minutes, that he sweated out from an allergic reaction. When the checklist had been sent out, one of the scientists to help assemble it had attached an anecdote to the email. Well, email/lecture. Apparently in the early 21st century, Earth's World Health Organization had implemented a checklist for surgeons in an attempt to reduce mistakes made by doctors and nurses. An analysis revealed that implementing it had reduced post-surgical deaths by 40%. Shala wasn't sure if this was true. It sounded apocryphal when she'd first heard it. And yet, the bagel. The species they were meeting, designated Larkinids, were describable as something between a mammal and a reptile with soft alligator skin. Their arms were quite long, and though they naturally had 4-inch claws, almost all citizens kept them trimmed short with the edges buffed off. As she and Tobias waited in the hall outside the room, shortly before the appointed time, Shala stared at her tablet and mused on the species summary. What do you think the symbiote species part means? Tobias let out a thoughtful breath. It was, one diplomat will be accompanied by a small symbiote species, right? Yeah, called a Tshirt. Described as somewhere close to an amphibian, and so I'm considering what kind of symbiosis they could have considering the species. Nutritional, perhaps? They're harmless if we believe our all-knowing astrobiologists. Her partner smirked. Couldn't even start to guess, though when I first read it, I pictured some sort of creature growing out of their shoulder. Shala chuckled. That's entertaining. My daughter is obsessed with Marvel Comics, so I immediately thought of Venom. Venom? Think of possession by black slime that both wants to eat people and has a complex personality. I think if we were on the menu, that would have been in the briefing. When the time finally arrived, both species entered the room through separate doorways. They stopped a few feet from each other and graciously exchanged greetings. Shala and Tobias put their hands together in front of them, the instructed greeting from their briefing. Humanity had long ago decided to bow, since shaking hands wasn't practical, and that was what the Larkinids did. Then Shala promptly spoke up. "Oh my gosh, it is adorable," she exclaimed. "My Tshirt?" asked the diplomat, a female if her larger size was anything to go by. That would make her Nakiso and her partner Unteli. "You like him?" "He looks like a beloved animated character come to life," Tobias said with a grin, tilting his head. The purple lizard-like creature was perched on the woman's shoulder, his long tail curled around her neck, and his small claws gripping her ragged skin to stabilize himself. His large eyes gazed curiously at the two humans, and his 2 leaf-shaped ears were pointed straight up, presumably for better hearing. "Our briefing said you had a small symbiote," Shala said, but it wasn't clear on what the exchange of benefits was. "Well, His ancestors love to eat flying insects just as much as he does, she explained. We began to tame and carry them, keep them with us and in our homes as protection against biting insects. But there are no insects here, Shala said, with a happy, knowing smile on her face. You're saying he's a pet. Is that all right? She asked worriedly. It's more than all right. Is he friendly? Can I hold him? The Larkinid stood up straighter, her mouth opening briefly. Of course, yes. She gently took the creature from her shoulder and handed him over, and Shala mimicked how to properly hold him. His name is Uxie. Oh, he is so soft, she whispered. Shala brought him up to her face to look into his big blue eyes. Hello, Uxie. Tobias gently stroked a finger down the animal's back, smiling. Now I get it, spoke Untelli, a rumbling reverberating up through him that his translator conveyed as laughter. He met Nakiso's gaze. This is what they meant. What who meant? Tobias asked. The other species we've met so far all took Uxie's presence in stride, Nakiso explained. Essentially treated him with respect but ignored him. We haven't even sat down and you two needed to be introduced and are delighted to meet him and hold him. What Untelli meant was that after a brief discussion about Uxie and his species, two of the others we met said, You're going to love the humans. Shala grinned. I see what you mean. She turned to Tobias, raising her eyebrows in a question, and he nodded. She passed him over to her partner so he could have a turn. Does your species keep any other animals as pets? Nakiso's face contorted, and Shala realized she was being educated in all sorts of body language. Shock, delight, and now amusement. We do. Quite a few, actually. This is common for humans as well. Without a word, Shala took out her communicator and flipped through her photographs. This is my dog, Zoe, she said happily. She is a breed called a Markisji. Nakiso hissed in a sharp breath through her teeth. Wow! She stared for a long moment. She's beautiful. A dog. We have furry animals as well. Children love the small ones. How many breeds of dog are there? Do you think they would be okay in a home with a Tshirt? I couldn't possibly memorize all the different breeds, Shala replied. And yes, many can be trained to be very gentle with smaller animals. There are tons of other pets, honestly, Tobias told them, tucking Uxie against his chest. Some have fur, others have scales. Cats, rabbits, birds, ferrets, all kinds of reptiles and fish. Are all of those words translating? He asked, laughing. Not yet, but I know they will soon, remarked Untelli. Every other species has been baffled when we talked about our many pets. They sometimes saw the appeal, but none of them reacted like this. You all love the humans. I think they undersold that quite a bit.